From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. Thank you for taking time to tune in. If you're watching us live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, X, or wherever else, thank you for taking the time this morning to be part of the show. We've got a lot to talk about today. Yesterday's show was epic. If you missed yesterday's show, go check it out. We talked a lot about the Snowflake incident, and we're actually working on getting some exclusive information about the Snowflake breach that we'll hopefully be able to share with all of y'all this week once we validate that information is true. So without further ado, though, let's go ahead and get started on this morning's show, because again, like yesterday, I try to pick 5 and I never end up with 5 stories. It's always a whole lot more. So make sure to subscribe, follow our Substack for all of the exclusive writing. That's jamesazar.substack.com. All of the news are in the show links. You can go and check them out there. And now, without further ado, join me for a cup of coffee, my double espresso this morning, and a tradition on the show. Coffee cup cheers. Okay, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling here. A cyber attack on telecom giant Frontier has been claimed by RansomHub. The cyber attack on one of the large telecom companies has been claimed by the ransomware gang that's gaining steam as a cyber criminal operation. And like I said, you take one down and another one replaces it because of the decentralized nature of cybercrime. That's important to note here, because this is a repeated cycle in cybersecurity. Law enforcement will go take down a site, celebrate it. We all go, woohoo, we've made a dent, only to figure out, no, not really, because we're fighting these guys like they're an organized group, and they're not. They're decentralized with different stakeholders across different aspects of the kill chain. And so it creates a whole lot more difficulty for law enforcement to tackle those challenges. RansomHub Operations posted the Frontier communications to its leak side, claiming to have sensitive information of more than 2 million people. The group claimed it spent more than 2 months attempting to extort the company, but never got a response. Frontier did not respond to requests for comments, reported the incident to the SEC in April. At the time, the Dallas-based company said they detected unauthorized access to its IT systems on April 14th and began instituting containment measures that include shutting down certain parts of the company's systems. The shutdowns caused operational disruption that the company said could be considered material. Based on the investigation, it said that the third party was likely a cybercrime group, which gained access to, among other information, PII. The ransomware group claimed to have access to names, addresses, social security numbers, credit scores, and more, which again leads me to the kind of thing of, how is that data sitting unencrypted, not behind multi-level authentication? How is there no DLP on that specific data? It just mind boggles me every time we look at a breach and I go, where's if this PII data, let's say, is crown jewels, right? Why is social security numbers and credit scores, how are those stored? Why is there no DLP rules for that? So RansomHub is quickly taking credit for several high-profile incidents. They were involved in the Change Healthcare incident as well. So these guys have now claimed that there. Sticking with cable providers this morning, telecom giant Cox Communication recently patched a series of vulnerabilities that could have allowed or may have allowed attackers to remotely take control of millions of customer modems used by their customers, according to one researcher. This researcher, Sam Curry, he's a reputable researcher. He's uncovered serious security flaws in products like Apple, airline and hotel reward platforms, Points.com, and vehicles from over a dozen car makers. Curry started looking into the security of Cox modems in 2021 when his own home modem was hacked at the time. The telecom firm replaced his compromised device with a new one before he was able to conduct a detailed analysis, but it took a closer look at the Cox modems and systems earlier this year. His recent analysis led to the discovery of an API for which authorization could be bypassed, potentially enabling an unauthenticated attacker to gain the same privileges as a Cox Tech's support team. Specifically, an attacker could abuse this API to override configuration setting, access the router, and execute commands on the device. The series of vulnerability demonstrated a way in which a fully external attacker with no prerequisites could have executed commands and modified the settings of millions of modems, accessed any business customer's PII, and gained essentially the same permissions of an ISP support team. In theoretical attack scenario described by current attacker could have searched for a targeted Cox business user through an exposed API using the target's name, email address, phone number, or account number. They could then obtain additional information from the target's user accounts, obtain their Wi-Fi password, execute arbitrary commands, update device settings, and take over accounts. So Cox was informed of this on March 4th, took action to prevent exploitation by the next day, and they said they're conducting a comprehensive security review following his report. One piece of advice I'll give everyone who's got a router: don't get a router, get a gateway, buy your own router, put it behind a firewall. It's really not that hard. You can get a Ubiquity system, you can get a Netgear, a whole bunch of them, and then some people will yell at me for saying those two names. But put your suggestion in the comments. Tell us what your home network looks like. What do you use? How do you defend yourself so you're not exposed? Great way. Good ideas. We'll get a free espresso mug from me. There we go. Put those in the comments. The ones I like best, I'll reach out to you. Someone from the team will reach out and get you a free espresso mug directly shipped to your home. Security researchers at Tenable discovered what they describe as a high severity vulnerability in the Azure service tags that could allow attackers to access customer private data. Service tags are groups of IP addresses for a specific Azure service used for firewall filtering and IP-based access control lists when network isolation is needed to safeguard Azure resources. This is achieved by blocking incoming or outgoing internet traffic. And the very basics, by the way, everything that's described in this one paragraph here is the basics of firewall configuration and network traffic. So significant. Tenable's Liv Matan explained that the threat actors can use the vulnerability to craft malicious SSRF-like web requests to impersonate trusted Azure services, bypass firewall rules based on Azure service tags, often used to secure Azure services and sensitive data without any sort of authentication check. This is a high severity vulnerability that could allow an attacker to access Azure's customers' private data. Attackers could exploit the availability test feature in the classic test or standard test functionality, allowing them to access internal services and potentially expose internal IPs hosted on ports 80 and 443. Matan shared technical information in the report on abusing custom headers and Azure service tags to access internal IPs that aren't normally exposed. Since Microsoft does not plan to issue a patch for this vulnerability, all Azure customers are at risk. They're recommending customers to immediately review the centralized documentation issued by MSRC and follow the guidelines thoroughly. While they discovered in the Azure Application Insight Service, they found that it impacts at least 10 others. That's Azure DevOps, Machine Learning, Logic Apps, Container Registry, Load Testing, API Management, Data Factory, Action Group, AI Video Indexer, and Chaos Studio. To defend against attacks taking advantage of this issue, Tenable's advising Azure customers to add additional authentication or authorization layers on top of the network controls based on service tags to protect their assets from exposure. Microsoft disagrees with the findings, saying that the assessment are not to be treated as a security boundary and should only be used as a routing mechanism in conjunction with validation controls. They're not a comprehensive way to secure traffic. The question isn't if this is right or wrong. The question is, are customers doing it? And if they're doing it, then it's a risk. And if it's a risk, then you should obviously talk about that, Microsoft. Just, an idea there. The SonicWall Capture Labs teams discovered a remote code execution vulnerability in the Confluence data center and server. The vulnerability, tagged with CVE 2024-21683, has a CVSS score of 8.3 out of 10. It allows an authenticated threat actor the ability to execute arbitrary code. In order to leverage this specific vulnerability, an attacker must have network access to the vulnerable system and possess the privilege to add a new macro language, which makes this much, much more difficult. They've released 2 signatures for its customers to be prepared in case of exploitation: IPS 4437 and IPS 4438, along with indicators of compromise. They're strongly recommending the user upgrades their instance to the latest available versions due to the role that Confluence Server can play in maintaining an organization's knowledge base and other critical information there as well. And that's on the data center side. So if you have a data center, you want to do it. If you work with a data center that uses Confluence, you may just want to shoot over an email, make sure you're not potentially a victim of this vulnerability. Google started rolling out the June 2024 set of monthly security updates for Android, patching 37 vulnerabilities, including multiple high severity elevation of privilege bugs. This was the first part that was released on June 1st that had resolved 19 flaws in the framework and system component. A total of 7 security defects were addressed in the system component, all leading to elevation of privilege. Of the 12 issues resolved in framework, 10 are elevation of privilege bugs, 1 leads to information disclosure, and 1 for denial of service. An additional 18 vulnerabilities will be released tomorrow with the security patch level for June 5th. Devices running this contain fixes for all of these bugs, as well as security defects addressed with the previous patch levels in June 2024. So make sure you get your Android update. We don't need to continue there as well. Authorities in Europe have revealed the identities of 8 Russian individuals linked to several malware loader families that were disrupted last week as part of Operation Endgame. Operation Endgame took down the distribution of Bumblebee, Iced ID, Pick-a-Pot, Smoke Loader, System BC, and TrickBot. All have been used for years to steal user data. All in all, it's believed that they have earned more than $75 million. The 8 suspects, all Russian nationals, according to Europol, are Aryat Rostomovich Gruber, sounds like a diehard villain, has been the administrator of the Smoke Loader botnet, which first appeared in 2011, abusing the infected machines for data theft and the installation of other malware for a fee. 5 other Russian nationals named Oleg Vyachenovich, Korchov, Serg. I'm not going to say their names. Their names are on here. Y'all can see that. They were wanted for their ties with the TrickBot gang, and then and 2 additional Russians are wanted for being the cryptors behind TrickBot. So all in all, these guys are wanted. They'll never leave Russia, and they'll just reboot, reset, and start over there as well. Speaking of Russia, 2 Russian state-aligned threat actors have been carrying out online influence operations designed to undermine the Olympic Games in Paris this summer. For a year now, Storm 1679er and the recently disrupted Storm 1099er, aka Doppelganger, have been spreading fake news, doctored images, and AI-aided videos about the Olympics on social media. According to Microsoft, the goal seems to be twofold: harm the reputation of the International Olympic Committee, which has banned Russia in the past, and stoke fears around potential violence at the Summer Games. Time will tell whether these operations are a precursor to more direct cyber attacks during the games themselves. By the way, like irregardless to what they're saying, the French just over the weekend arrested a terror cell attempting to launch a terror attack during these Olympic Games. So let's also remember this is the 50-year anniversary to the 1974 Munich Games, where Palestinian terrorists hijacked and kidnapped Israeli Olympians and killed them as well. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here that play into these games beyond what Russia's doing. So what Russia's trying to do is undermine the games themselves, which is understood. The idea of a physical attack on the Paris Olympics are real. I've spoken to a lot of people who are going or were planning on going, but decided to essentially not go due to some of the security concerns there as well. So just keeping that in mind. Microsoft's India account on X, formerly known as Twitter, with over 211,000 followers, was hijacked by crypto scammers to impersonate Roaring Kitty, the handle used by notorious meme stock trader Keith Gill. Microsoft's India's X account has a gold check, officially verified org, which gives it a lot of legitimacy. Apparently, Roaring Kitty came out, took over the account, posted a kind of crypto scam there. So shame on Microsoft. How does that happen? There's that. And duplicate story here. So we'll leave that be. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back with a whole lot more tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live shows, live Monday through Thursday. This Friday, Jamie, the founder of Nudge Security and CTO, will be joining me for a Friday conversation at 11 a.m. Eastern. You don't want to miss it. The event will be created today, so make sure you go and subscribe to that. We're going to have a great conversation around the challenges of SaaS. We're going to be talking Snowflake and a whole lot. I'm really excited. It's going to be a live show, so tune in. Come prepared with questions. Call us out. We always love that. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.